Good morning and welcome to the ongoing series of interviews with professors internationally, hosted by the Professors World Peace Academy. I'm Frank Kaufmann. I'm the director of the Professors World Peace Academy, and it's our great pleasure today to welcome for our interview series Professor Hanoch Ben Pazi. Professor Ben Pazi is the chair of the Department of Jewish Philosophy at Bar Ilan University in Israel. Professor Ben Pazi researches contemporary philosophy and modern Jewish thought. He especially has done a great deal of work in the philosophical writings and Jewish thought of Martin Buber, Franz Rosenzweig, Emmanuel Lévinas, and Jacques Derrida. Professor Ben Pazi writes on ethics, contemporary philosophy, and modern Jewish thought in the framework of religious studies and interreligious dialogue. One of his many works is the book Interpretation as Ethical Act, the Hermeneutics of Emmanuel Lévinas, and also the book Emmanuel Lévinas, Educational Contract, Responsibility, Hopefulness, and Alliance. Please join me to welcome to our program Professor Hanoch Ben Pazi. Hello, Professor.
Hi, Frank.
Very good to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So it's morning here in New York. It's late afternoon there with you, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And which city are you in Israel?
Now I'm in Modi'in.
Okay.
Where they live. Not in the university. It's late afternoon, so I'm home.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm glad we're together, and I'm going to jump right in. We'll take 30 or 40 minutes together because work that you've done a little bit ago, some time ago, happens to turn out to be enormously relevant for the very moment that we're living through, and one that really no one saw coming, I think, which is the context of the racial sensitivity and racial kind of protests and uprisings internationally, and especially in the U.S., and work that you had done that we set aside to converse, to exchange or have our exchange and converse over, wasn't based on your research in South Africa with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which you will refer to as TRC. So for our listeners, when you're hearing these letters, TRC, it has to do with the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions in Post Apartheid South Africa. So very quickly, the title of the piece I'm working with, in which I've studied and the professors kindly agreed to expound on his research. It's called Chapter 7, and I learned recently, and the professor will explain it's a chapter of what, but the name of it is Bearing Witness, Responsibility, and Reconciliation, and in Levinasian Thought, the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions of Post-Apartheid South Africa. So, of course, Lévinasian refers to the philosophical work of Lévinas. Professor, first name is Emmanuel? Am I correct? Emmanuel?
Emmanuel Lévinas, that's right.
Yes, of course. Very well known, and my embarrassment, forget for a second, Emmanuel Lévinas. So, this is Chapter 7. Can you first tell us, it's Chapter 7 of what? Because I think it was also published as an independent journal article, and maybe perhaps there's more to come from this article.
So first of all, thank you very much, Frank, for inviting me to talk with you, to talk about my research. And I'm definitely agree that is relevant to our days and what's happened in the society, maybe in the state, but also in Israel and everywhere, and a lot of places in the world.
Yes.
So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
the truth is that this is chapter 7. It's an essay that published in a journal
Okay.
as an independent research. But
Yes.
for me, it is part of the new book that I'm going to now going to finish the manuscript for that, to talking about the meaning of witnessing. And
Very
the meaning
good.
of witnessing from the phenomenological point of view, from philosophical point of view, I mean, from the ethical point of view, from the theological point of view. And
Fantastic.
one helped one step to the other to think through this philosophical concept about a real problem in the politics, in the social environment, in the society, between people, between countries. So even it's now just an essay, independent research, it's going to be published in a great book about the meaning of witnessing.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye on that, and we will be involved in promoting that as soon as it's ready. And so the readers can and listeners can keep an eye on this space so that we can keep an eye on your forthcoming work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to do a couple of things before really the stage is yours. And so the first thing I want to do is, and this is from prior conversation we've had, that the term witnessing per se has a number of meanings, and some of which we'll cover, some of which are not the meaning at all of what you'll be looking at and what you've written in this particular essay. So there's a common use of the word witnessing, which describes evangelizing, proselytizing testimony to one's faith. So one goes out on the street to witness, or I'm witnessing, I'm testifying to my faith. It's often associated with Christian evangelical work, to witness and to try to bring people to Christ. So that use of the word witnessing is not what you've considered, and not, I believe, not under what we're discussing. There's other uses of the word to witness, which means to see something. I've witnessed an event. There's a noun to be called as a witness, in which you might be summoned to a court of law, or in this particular case, to the tribunal of the commissions, in which you are called as a witness, that you have to testify truthfully and honestly about what you know to be the facts of the case. Those are closely related. To witness, namely to see, and to be a witness, to be called under oath or under trust of some sort, to report what you've seen, and that has to be reliable. And finally, and the other distinction was that, which you will be able to help us with in a second, there in the commissions, someone would be called as a witness. They might even be, it's almost confession. They're reporting on their own deeds. So they might be a perpetrator of misdeeds, and they're a witness in the process. Or another person might have been a victim of the misdeeds or oppressions that arose out of the individual's action, and the systems that were in place there. So there's in the situation in South Africa, and correct me when we release to you here, there's a witness telling of my own deeds, a witness telling of what I've been subject to, and a witness in that third use, in classical use of I've seen this, I testify this as the case. That's the third type. So the last thing, Professor, and thanks for your patience, I want to do is to just read what the Minister of Justice described when introducing the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, because here's where I want the listener to live with, at least me, and I'm sure you as well, on the extreme relevance of the moment, because we're going to be moving into philosophy, theology, some rarefied stuff of the recent French philosophers that may be difficult for the listener, but this is for the sake of moving on together in a wholesome way for a brighter future. And so here's what the Minister of Justice said, introducing the commissions. I have the privilege and responsibility, I'm reading, just quoting, and thanks for your patience on this, Professor. I have the privilege and responsibility to introduce today a bill which provides a pathway, a stepping stone towards the historic bridge of which the Constitution speaks, whereby our society can leave the past of a deeply divided society characterized by strife, conflict, untold suffering, and injustice. Leave that and commence the journey towards a future founded on the recognition of human rights, democracy, and peaceful coexistence, and development of opportunities for all South Africans, irrespective of color, race, class, belief, or sex. So in a certain way, this was one of the greatest experiments of all times. And to whatever degree it was successful or failed, you'll be able to tell us more. Certainly the United States, countries around the world are looking for the very same processes and opportunities to be honest about broken past and to be hopeful and deliberate about a shared future of profound human equality. So thanks for letting me talk so long by way of introduction. But Professor, can you pick up on any part of what I've mentioned so far?
So first of all, thank you for this quotation from the
Minister of Justice.
The minister gave the account about the meaning of TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and it is very important because he understood and they understood that this is a historical fact, historical act, what they did together in the TRC. And I want to deal with this issue from a religious perspective, from an ethical perspective, and maybe from a social perspective. And
Very good. Professor, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting already. The listeners should know you were there. You spent time in South Africa. And so I'm sorry I'm interrupt again, but when you go into the essence of your work, which is profound, but also I'm sure that your listeners would love to know what that must have been like. So thanks for both coming up. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. So I really wanted to deal with this issue, this journey to South Africa, and I want to share with you the way I arrived to this issue, to this topic. I work about the meaning of testimony and witnessing. In Hebrew, it's called edut, to give a witness, to bear witness. From the phenomenological point of view, it's very philosophical topic, question about who see the other person, what does it mean to be regarded by the other person, and this kind of issue. It's not important for us now. And then I realized that the meaning of witnessing, of talking about the ones who see something, who heard something, experience something, it is very important, not only from the from what I call later from the Lévinasian point of view, but also from the historical point of view, because there was an event, very dramatic, I may say heroic event, in the history of South Africa, when Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu tried to change the history between the people in South Africa. And they asked themselves, how can we live after the apartheid regime? How can we live in the time of post-apartheid, when the racism is all over the world, all over the society, all over the country. And we want to continue to the new future with hope, to think in different kind of issue. And they knew.
Yes.
And it was very important for the Desmond Tutu that we have to face the history. We have to forgive what happened to us and to others in the history of South Africa. Desmond Tutu said, there is no future without forgiveness. And the truth, what's happened to me, and it's very interesting, not only for me, I think, that I read a lot before I arrived to South Africa. I read a volume of the TRC, 7 very huge and difficult and deep, and part of that is really, really difficult to read what happened there. Between the people, between the races, between the police and the all the citizens, and between the police and themselves. It is very, very, very difficult to read it. And I felt myself, I know everything, and now I come to South Africa to talk. I prepared this journey very, very well, and I arrived to Johannesburg. And I may tell you, in the first moment when I left the airport, I realized that I have to meet the people to understand what happened there. Because one of the first sentence that someone told me, and it was, I'm not sure about it, if the taxi driver, it was the taxi driver who took me from the airport to my hotel. And I asked a few questions about, he asked me what I'm doing here. I look like a professor and why I arrived to Johannesburg, etc. And I said, I want to talk with the TRC. Oh, you have to know. Reconciliation, maybe. Truth, no. I said, what? I read the truth. No. And then after a few sentences, we continued to talk, and he said, in a very special accent, that for you, I'm not sure why you think that I'm from the state. At the beginning, I told him that I'm from Israel, but it's okay for me. And then he said, for you in the state, there is a PC, politically correct. No, here in South Africa, black is black, white is white. Don't talk like this. We have to deal with the race. And in this very simple conversation that I had between the airport to the hotel, I realized that I have to reframe all what I read before. And because, and the truth is that it's very early to think what is the result of the TRC. It's only 25 years now.
Yeah.
I was there before 5 years, 20 years. Because people still there. The people that, the individuals, the person that came before the court, came before the committee, before the commissions, before the TRC, and they talked about what happened to them, what happened to the other people, what did they see, what did they hear, and they still there live with their enemies, but try to live together. And for this point of view, I can talk about the TRC and the meaning witnessing. Because, and please let me divide between what's happened in the TRC and the way that Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, thought about what's happened there. He is a religious leader. For him, it is very important that all he has done in the TRC was to give a witness before God about the equality, about humanity, about the belief in the future, belief between people. And for him, all this event has a religious meaning. We have to understand that, because from philosophical point of view, I will talk about what is the meaning to the person that arrived to the TRC and give testimony, bear a witness about what happened to him, to his family, to someone else, or to his good friend that disappeared during the apartheid.
Yeah.
But for Desmond Tutu, all what we are talking about has a religious meaning. For the first and foremost, to give a witness is to stand before God and say, this is the truth, or this is my truth. This is the best way that I understand what's happened here, what's happened in the history, what happened in South Africa.
So, Professor, it sounds to me as though he's the main architect of the TRC, I think. That's correct, right? He's the driving force, Desmond Tutu. Isn't
Nelson Mandela was a political leader.
Yes.
He thought about the future. He thought about the way to change the future of South Africa.
Yes.
He realized, because of his biography, because of the events, he made a lot of efforts to deal with this question.
Yes.
But he looking for a way, an act, a traditional way to deal with the problem with conflict between people.
Yes.
It took a very traditional African act that you don't take the people to the court, but you give testimony, witnessing about what happened. You told about your side, the other person talk about his side, and then because you gave a witness, that's enough. We know what's happened, and now we can continue on. And but arrived to Desmond Tutu.
Yeah.
Tutu was a Christian tradition. And from his point of view, he thought also about the forgiveness, about the importance to give these people that made a very terrible and bad and horrible act that you can imagine, you gave them the opportunity to continue in their life. For Desmond Tutu, forgiveness was the most important accurate act in all the TRC.
Yes. This is so fascinating. I realize now, just in your last 3 sentences, that there's actually 1,000 books to be written on this. Every inch of it. The touch point between political purposes and spiritual purposes, and the integration of like something as spiritual as forgiveness, how vital is that to just purely political calculations? If you're trying to create a fair and just and harmonious society, is it even possible just by purely political matters or techniques? So that the relationship between these two men and the inner mind with which they agreed to collaborate for the creation of these commissions itself is fascinating. Is this
I want to continue with your talk. What was fascinating for me, and please forgive me that I will, excuse me for sharing with you a very short philosophical perspective of the meaning of witnessing. From the first impression, when you think about witness, to be a witness, you think about the third person. Right. Someone that is not part of the event, so see something, hear something, and give a witness about what happened there. Right. The most common witness now in our day is the witness about accident, car accident. Someone walk in the street and he saw something in the between two cars, and then nothing happened to the drivers. It's okay, just for the story. And the police ask, who saw something? And there is someone said, I'm just walking here, and I walk on, I didn't stand by and bystander, and so he gave a witness about what happened there.
Yeah.
But from phenomenological point of view, to be a witness to something is to be part in the situation, to be part, including in the situation that you saw. And just to that our listener can feel something about it, I will share with you when I talk with my students, I told them, don't think about yourself as a witness. Think about yourself when someone else saw you. What happened to you when you realize that someone else around saw you? Give you attention. That could change your behavior. That could change your feeling. And I've obviously said, yes, of course. If I know that someone see me, I change my way of behavior. So to be a witness, the meaning of being a witness is to be involved in the situation that you are witness to.
Right.
When the TRC worked in the South Africa, all of the country heard the voices, the testimonies, the act. They have all the radio stations, all the television, all the newspaper. 1 year and a half, you can hear day after day these testimonies. And everyone can be part of the apartheid situation and to be part of the reconciliation also. Because they have to be part of that. I talked to someone in Cape Town, very nice person. She told me, we talk in her office and then we walk a little. And when we walk, she told me, this was my office in the TRC, the time of the TRC. And I used to work from this office to my own, right away. And all the way, I heard the voices from the radio because all the shops, the radio was open. And I heard the testimony after testimony. And it was part of the environment of all the country for these 18 months. It is
more
amazing.
Than a year. More than a year, you say.
More than a year.
And if I may interrupt, Professor. Oh no, just
1 second. Okay. And you have to understand that part of this testimony you can't hear. It's so hard to hear it.
Oh.
That you have to be part of that.
My brief interruption was: were people like kind of gripped by this? Was this everything? Was everybody listening? Was the whole country? Was this everything in life for this year or more?
As much as I understand the situation, and I arrived 20 years later, and I can see that there is a difference between the young and the adults, of course. Because for the adults, is part of their biography.
Yes.
They were part of this event, historical event. And for not a lot of them, but for few of them, they felt that this is not only an historical event in the life of South Africa, but historical event in the life of the world, of all humanity.
It is, yes.
They construct a new way of deal with a political conflict between people in the most extreme situation of the apartheid,
right.
Between races, between the black and the white and the colors. And what happened there that they have to, you may say that the best way is to close your eyes, look forward and say, the past is not important, I want to talk about the future. And Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela require them to listen to what happened there. When I think about the situation now in Europe, in the States, in Israel, I said, do we have the courage to do that?
Yeah, that's right.
To do that?
Or just the fortitude, just the endurance, the physical endurance to do this as a world, as the South Africans did.
And there were I have a lot of experience from this journey to South Africa, and I'm so glad. Thank you very much for taking me back to South Africa. What happened there? Because it was very intensive time for me there. I have a lot of meetings and between people, just for pictures this issue. I arrived to the to someone. She's a social worker in Johannesburg. She worked with the people in the small neighborhood in Johannesburg. Johannesburg is not a very easy city until today. And we talk about, and she told me, that a lot of the people, you have to know, there are a lot of people that didn't agree to give witnessing, to give testimony before the TRC. And they are really sorry about it.
Oh.
All their life, they feel that they missed something. Because they wanted to give a testimony, and they're afraid to do that, not only about what happened to them, but about acts that they did. That they did against other people. Because someone was a policeman, and you don't have to imagine, to guess what does it mean to be a policeman in this the regime of the apartheid.
Right.
And he is still sorry about the situation. He regrets that he didn't give a testimony. So she worked with him. She worked with other people. And at the end of this meeting, she asked me, Ben Pazi, she called me Hanoch. My name is Hanoch. And all the people that can say it, she said, Hanoch, can you, I made a good word for you. I said, you were wonderful. Thank you very much. So now you will do what I ask you to do. Okay? You will go to visit the jail of the apartheid regime. And I said, okay, if you ask me to do. No, because I want you to be there. And I asked my friend in the jail, in the prison, to see, to show you the places, the rooms in these places, in the violence that have been there. And I went there. Her friend waited for me and took me to a small visit, very short visit, just because she asked me to do it. So I'll do that for you. It's okay. And it took me one room to the other, and I was shocked. What is the meaning of this, that I was shocked? I understood that more than any other articles, any other dialogue, conversation, just to see the places where these violent acts happened. It was very, very hard to see it.
Yeah.
It's empty rooms now. Yeah, there is no picture.
Yeah, right.
Empty, but you understand a lot from that.
Yeah.
So this kind of question, when she asked me to do that, I was naive. Okay, if you ask me, I'll do that.
Yeah, right. Until you're suddenly there, and
then you realize, part of the story of witnessing, and this is very hard to talk about, but please let me talk about a little bit.
Yes, please.
When we saw very hard pictures, we have to ask ourselves what's happened to us in this situation. From one point of view, we saw it and we say, wow, this is horrible. This is so sad to see this kind of picture. This is very problematic to see it. But there is a very small drive in ourselves that like to see the bad, that like to see the horrible pictures. For example, we can think about the pictures that every one of our listeners remember, or if not remember, And this is the 9/11. This is horrible pictures. When you understand what is the meaning of this terrorist attack, and we know it, but we can't. We have to see it. We feel that we have to see this kind of event, and we ask ourselves why. And this is part of the phenomenology of witness can explain us, that we have to deal not with what happened there, what happened inside ourselves. What is the deep meaning of this drive that ask us to take this kind of picture and say, oh, it's so sad to see these pictures.
Yeah.
This image of the plane, what's happened there.
Yeah.
But part of the situation of witnessing is not only to deal with the history, biography, is also to deal with ourselves, with the deep bit of our personality, our character, the different aspect of our character, our personality, and to face it, and to understand that this is part of the story that we have to deal with.
Yes.
For Lévinas, and if I want to add Lévinas to our conversation, for Lévinas, this is the meaning of responsibility. We have to take responsibility to what we have witnessed to, what we heard, what we did, and then we can continue to deal with the ethical problems, the ethical issues in our life.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm guessing here, I've read the philosophy, but he almost manages to conflate morality and ontology, because you describe the act of witnessing as it's participatory like the example you gave your students. If you know you're being watched, hasn't that impacted your behavior? So the witness is actually a participant, and that's just an ontological or matter of logic just by describing the fact. And yet, that definition as participant carries with it responsibility for the event. Do I catch anything there in the
you are
philosophy?
definitely right, because when we talk about ontology, we talk about facts. What's happened here? What's happened there? What is the being? What is the non-being? But for Lévinas, the fact that you saw something, that I saw something, has an ethical meaning. That I have to bear witness to this issue, to this act, to this person.
Yes.
And for Lévinas, the involvement of the other person in my life, because I saw him, make me responsible for him, for his desire,
Yeah.
for his need, from his means. I need to do something for him.
Yeah.
And here it is very important, and this is the way that when I try to think about the TRC on our political issues, on social issues, I realize that when I think about the situation, not from the outsider, but from the insider, from the person that involved in the situation, I may understand what is the meaning of responsibility that I have. There is a very famous play that of words that Lévinas did in French, but we can also do it in English. What is the meaning of responsibility? Responsibility.
Mm.
When you have the ability to respond, you have the responsibility.
Mm.
When someone tells you in his need, in his words, in his asking, and you hear it, ipso facto, you are responsible for him.
Yeah.
Ipso facto, for this situation that you saw the other person as the other, make you a subject that is responsible to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And here, the ethical point of view is very demanded, as you can understand.
Right. It becomes inescapable. It's somehow he's torn the veil between the being and the separation that's a kind of tacked on, and independently of that, we also have moral responsibilities. It's not an also anymore with Lévinas. It's folded into being and morality are a simultaneous.
I can follow your sentence. Wonderful sentence. Thank you very much. Because for Lévinas, this is the meaning of the subjectivity of the subject.
Mm-hmm.
The person, the human being, became a subject when he agreed to be subjected to this ethical request.
Mm-hmm.
To be subject is to be in relation to the other, but not because you think about yourself, but because you understand that there is an other in his otherness, and you are responsible for his otherness. What usually Lévinas call it altérité.
He calls it what?
Altérité.
Okay.
Otherness, alterity.
Altérité.
So for Lévinas, this is a very important act, not act, the important understanding of human being that is responsible for the other. And I want to, may I share another point in this issue?
Yes, please. And soon we're out of time, but
Wow.
please carry on.
You know, Lévinas, Emmanuel Lévinas, was a philosopher of the second half of the 20th century.
Yes.
And he asked for his readers, for his listener, what is the meaning of being a person, a human being, in the second half of 20th century? We have to ask ourselves about these two great world wars.
Right.
After the Holocaust, after the apartheid, after what happened in Japan, what happened in a lot of places in the world.
Yes.
And a lot of names, Rwanda, Auschwitz, Biafra. We have a lot of names of places that is very hard to hear about.
Yes.
And then you think we have to return, to come back to the elementary relation between people. And when you return to the first step is between one and the other person, between me and the other, between the other and the third person. And when we think about this meeting, relation, we will understand again what is the meaning of subjectivity of the subject, not because he wanted to be the best, but because he wanted to be responsible for other people.
Yeah. How great. How great. Professor, as we conclude, I wonder if you might not help us here. I think every conscientious person alive is wanting to be a part of responding well, even if we are not aware of ourselves as having any culpability in the race problems, and we're witnessing a kind of an upheaval of sorts. Can you blend somehow this wisdom of the witness in a word that might be helpful for just your average person, and that's all of us really, in the moment?
I may say that one of the questions when you realize the meaning of witnessing in your life, the next question, and it's a very crucial question, how can I deal with this responsibility?
Yes.
In one aspect, it's to go to the court and bear witness about what happened. In the other is to take your life and being witness and to do something to make your society better, to make the life of the other person better. But for Lévinas, the glory of the witness is because when you understand the deep meaning of this responsibility, this is the way that you live a place for God to be part of your life.
I see.
Because when you are bearing witness to the other person, you gave a witness to glorification, to the glory of the God in our life.
Yeah.
And in Hebrew, there is a very nice name, Tehilat HaEdut. It's like Tehillah is like the Hallelujah. It's the glory of the God when you gave the witness to the other person is in his otherness, to the other people in their otherness.
Fantastic.
This is the way we have to deal with that question.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. I can't think of a more perfect way to end. Either we go on forever or we have to pick some moment, and that's the perfect one. So can you give the Hebrew and the English one last time, and then we'll say goodbye. What are the terms again, please?
Tehilat HaEdut, the glory of the witnessing.
Beautiful.
Tehillah, like Hallelujah, Tehilat HaEdut, the glory of witnessing. Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. It was wonderful dialogue and a wonderful time with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving us all a lot to think about and a lot to work with. I look forward to a future time again, Professor. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.